Hey everyone, welcome, and hope you guys all did okay with your podcast. If you did not finish your podcast, I am going to let you guys submit it tonight. What I'm going to have you do, if you need to communicate with your partner and you weren't able to yesterday, what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you share your document with me. So just share your link and make sure that you I will send it to your partner so that way that they can see your doc and you can share it. So just make sure that you guys do that if you haven't finished your podcast. If you finish your podcast, you're good. You don't have to worry about it. um, what I'm going to have everybody do right now is I'm going to have you just take a few minutes, and I'm going to have you guys actually all subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel. I just use it for this class. I don't like have any other like nefarious reasons for having you subscribe or anything. You guys could turn your camera off now too if you haven't already. Sorry, that was my bad. But so I'm gonna go ahead. The links are on Canvas, but I'm just gonna put them in the chat because I think that'd probably be easiest. So here is first one coming up is my podcast one. Once you guys, hold on a second. Okay, so here's the podcast link. So go ahead, click on that, subscribe. You're gonna take a screenshot and you're gonna submit it to Canvas. Everybody has Apple Podcasts on their iPad. It's one of those ones that you can't get rid of. It might be in a folder or something, but again, you do have it. So yeah, so just make
I'm
sure
on
that
my laptop.
I'm sorry.
I'm on my laptop.
You could still subscribe to it. You should still be able to subscribe to it through the web browser, if I'm not mistaken, or you technically can through Spotify too if you use that instead. But I just need to have a screenshot either way. But it's easier on Apple Podcasts.
What do you turn it in?
There's a assignment called subscribe. So again, as with everything that I always give you guys, it's in this week's module. It's on Tuesday for today. So yeah, just you're gonna submit it there. So you're gonna screenshot it. I'm also gonna send you the link to my YouTube channel too. And again, I know some people were having difficulty with the Anchor app and how to like get it submitted. So I created a 3.5 minute video last night. So that way you can just watch the video if you were having trouble. Most of my YouTube videos are like tutorials on how to do stuff. Sometimes I'll send you a random video that has nothing to do with anything, but for the most part, that's what it is. It's mostly for the class. But like I said, just you're going to submit the picture, the screenshot, whatever it is, for both. So 2 screenshots, one for the podcast, one for YouTube. So you might have to hit resubmit. I don't know if you can submit both screenshots at one time. If you can, awesome. But submit both screenshots. So I'll give you guys just a few minutes to do that. So go ahead and subscribe to the podcast first, which is up a little further in the chat, and then the YouTube one. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes. Submit it. You are going to be getting extra credit for this. So yeah, little free extra credit, but I do expect everyone to do that though. And then just really quick, messaging somebody who I let in, not sure who it is. Again, once you subscribe, take a screenshot of it saying subscribed and submit it to the assignment called subscribe in this week's module. So a screenshot of the YouTube and a screenshot of the podcast both being subscribed to. Again, not on Remind. There's an assignment on Canvas, so just please submit it to Canvas. All right. Anybody else have any questions about this? you should be able to just press subscribe on the icon. Again, Anthony, if you want to send me a screenshot of why you're not able to, but you should be able to. Yeah, so 1 second. I mean, so the name is just Seth Williams. If you just, I mean, that's my channel name. So I don't have like a branded name or anything like that. So, but again, if you just even go to one of my videos that I sent you on Remind Anthony, you could just subscribe from there technically too.
Where could we find the subscribe? Where could we find the assessment?
It's in this week's module. Again, like I said, all assignments I give you are always in the module. So if you go to this week's module, go to Tuesday, it'll be the one that's called subscribe. All right. So while you guys are doing that, I'm going to go ahead and talk about we are going to be starting a brief write today in my first period. I would say a lot of students actually were able to finish it in class. So other than if they didn't finish their podcast or if they don't finish this, they didn't really have any homework, which is great. And the great thing is too, for these brief writes, these are rough drafts. So yes, they have to be complete. You can't turn in a half finished copy and call it a rough draft. So it has to be all the way completed. But we are going to be working on them on Thursday. We're going to be making sure that we are improving them. So that's actually what the one of the podcasts I gave you guys. So there's two podcasts. One is the one that my friend and I did about the mythology, the two different myths. That was an example of what like the podcasts are that were like what I want you guys to do in your podcast. The second podcast I recorded yesterday was about 7 minutes long, and it was just talking about like why revision is important, but also like what kind of things you have to do for revision. So listen to that before Thursday's class. Again, it's only 7 minutes, so super short. Everybody good on the subscription? Anybody need the links again, or does everybody have it? All right. Anybody got any questions? I think we're gonna move on. So again, there will be assignments that are tied to listening to the podcast. So again, make sure you have your notifications turned on for both YouTube and for your podcast. So that way you get notifications whenever an episode drops. So that way you guys can make sure to watch it. So I try to limit how long they are. I know the one with my friend and I was a little longer, but I'm going to try to keep them under like 5 to 10 minutes in that range. And in the case of the anchor one that I did yesterday, that was only 3.5 minutes. So nice and short. But we're going to go ahead. We're going to talk about the podcast. So, or the brief write, I mean. So the brief write is actually related to the podcast that we did yesterday. And go ahead and put in the chat, where can you find the evidence for this prompt? What did we do recently that will help you guys find evidence that everybody has access to? So go ahead, type it up in the chat. All right, most people got it. So if I can get a few more responses just to make sure we're all listening. So yeah, the prompt for the podcast and the prompt for your brief write are exactly the same. Again, that was done purposely to help you guys maybe find more information, be able to hear somebody else's perspective. That way, if you didn't understand something, maybe you would like get it like explained to you better from like another peer of yours. But yeah, so the evidence you can collect from the Padlet. So the Padlet is what we did last Thursday. You guys were collecting evidence on what Rolf Carlet was like before, what was he like after the tragic event. So again, you don't have to even go looking through the story because we already looked in the story. So you can, and you don't have to use your own. You can use somebody else's if you think somebody else had a better quote than you. That's totally fine. Again, Carson, I already said this, but you turn it into the assignment called subscribe in this week's module. So yeah, it was basically how did Rolf Carlet change because of a tragic event. In this case, like Emily is saying in the chat, she's saying that he changed because of Oswald's death. So again, that is definitely the reason why he changed. So what you guys are going to have to do, but if you guys look, what else does it say in the very first sentence? What else do you have to do? What else do you have to discuss? You can unmute yourself because I know it's kind of a long explanation if you want to, but you don't have to. But what, in addition to how we changed, what else do we have to do? So again, I'm asking you to look at how he changed, but also how are we seeing how he changed? How are we seeing this idea being presented? Okay, I'm gonna call on somebody and I'm gonna have you guys respond because nobody's responding so far.
Oh, Mister, I have an idea.
Okay, go for it. Thanks, Matthew.
So the change in him could be like it's like a first person perspective from his girlfriend's, or from his girlfriend, and she like notices a change as he spends more time with Azucena.
That's perfect. Thank you, Matthew. So we are seeing everything that happens to Rolf Carlet. We're not seeing it from his thoughts or his point of view. We're looking at it through his girlfriend's point of view. So just remember the times where she talks about how she was jealous of Azucena because she feels like he's gaining more of a connection between her than he ever has with her, like between Rolf and his girlfriend and any other girl he's ever had. So you're able to see that. You're able to see like sometimes people don't have an honest like reflection of who they are as a person. Sometimes it takes an outside point of view to be able to see any growth or any change in a person. You might not feel like you're changing, but someone else who hasn't seen you or who does like know you, they might be able to say, oh, I've really noticed you're starting to change. You're like maybe you're improving, you're maturing, whatever it is. So you need to make sure that you're including that in there. So how does it being told from her point of view, how do we see him change because of that? So you not only need to show how he is changing before and after, but explain how seeing it from her through her eyes, how does that help us see that? Like I said, it could be kind of a complicated idea, but just all you need to remember is just like we're watching it through her eyes. How do we know that he's changed? How does it help us see how he's changed, basically? So that's what you're gonna need to do. I also gave you guys. I'm gonna share a different screen with you real quick. Once I log back into Canvas because it kicked me out. All right, so always go to the module. We're going to scroll down. It's crazy to think we're already in week 10, but it's true. We're in week 10. And just a reminder, too, that this is the last week of the grading period. So if you have any late work, make sure you get it into me this week, because after Friday, whatever grade you have is the grade that's going to come out in the progress report. This is the last progress report before grades become final. So grades will become final on December 18th, but I'm going to stop collecting late work because I will still take late work from as early as the beginning of the school year. You just need to make sure you get it into me after December 11th, which is the last week before finals. That's when the cutoff for late work is for this class. So just make sure that you guys are like taking note of that, December 11th. If you look at all of your assignments, that's the last day any of the assignments are available to turn in. Okay, so here we are. Week 10. In the resources, we have the slides for the week. We have the story. I have period 1 and period 5. You're welcome to look at either period. It doesn't matter. Yesterday was the podcast, but I'm giving you guys till tonight to complete that if you haven't yet. I'm still accepting yearbook photos. I might not give you as much extra credit, but if you still submit your photo, I will give you some extra credit. The subscribe, it says 0 points, but I'm giving you extra credit for that as well. So you'll get 10 points extra credit for subscribing, 5 points for each one you do. And then the end of clay brief write tips. So this is what I want you guys to be looking at right now. So basically, writing isn't like a math formula. It's more like a recipe. So the reason why I say it's more like a recipe is that with the math formula, it's a lot harder to change out the different variables. Like if you're doing like a graph, I think it's like y equals mx plus b or something. You can't really change that much. I mean, you can, but it's going to give you something completely different. So in a recipe, you can make small changes, right? So if I wanted to make something spicier, I could add more pepper to it, or more jalapeno, or more habanero, or whatever it is. If I want it sweeter, I could add more sugar. If I want it to have like a completely different flavor profile, maybe I'll throw in some herbs. So with the recipe for this brief write, again, you're going to have all these ingredients in there, and it's not necessarily in the correct order. It's mostly in the right order. So topic, sentence, brief, summary, that's in the right order. Then you're going to have your first quote, and then your next explanation. Then you're going to have a transition statement, and then another quote, and then another explanation, and then a concluding statement. So these are the things that you have to have in your brief write. And just things to consider. Don't make sure that it is not just a summary. You don't want to just tell me what the story's about. If you do, you're not going to be answering the prompt. Then you're not going to be able to get the points for the assignment. I know it seems like a crazy thing or a stupid thing to say, but read the prompt. Make sure that you're actually reading what I'm asking you to do, because I'll put the prompt down, and then sometimes people will like talk about something completely different. And again, obviously, in order to get the points, you have to talk about what I asked you about. Don't tell me what the quote says. So what I mean by that is when you give me your quote from the story, don't just like rephrase it or paraphrase it. So in this case, you're going to say like, here's the quote from before Ozzy Husseina's death. And then you're going to explain to me, what does that show about him? So if you're talking about like how he wasn't afraid of fear, there's a quote that talks about how he didn't seem to show fear. You would talk about how like that quote shows that like he was putting up like false appearances. He was trying to act tougher than he really was. Even though he was afraid, he didn't want to show it to the rest of the world. So again, not really paraphrasing what was said, but I'm just explaining like what it says about him. What does it show about him? And then you could go even deeper and talk about how the girlfriend was able to see past like when he would be afraid, because she knew that he was afraid sometimes, but she also saw him when he was acting tough in front of other people. So that's what you need to be doing in your explanation. Again, use the evidence that we already collected. Don't spend a lot of time looking for new evidence. We already have a lot of really good evidence in the Padlet, so you don't have to do the extra work. So when you guys are done with this, you are going to submit it to the end of clay brief write right here. And again, in the resources, I gave you the story. I gave you the links to the Padlets if you want to just do it from there. So the rough draft is going to be tomorrow night. We're going to be doing peer revisions on Thursday. So we're going to be revising each other's rough drafts. And then the final draft will be due next week. So 1 week from today. And then I also gave you a link to the calendar just so as a reminder. So you guys can see when things are due, not only for my class, but for other classes. And I just feel like that's an underutilized tool for you. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to be putting you all in breakout rooms like I've done before. What I would like you guys to do, though, is I would like you to share your end of clay brief write document with me. So title it. Let me go ahead and share one more time the background, and then I'll have you guys get started. Yes, you are going to be going out into breakout rooms alone. That way, if you need help, I could help you one-on-one. And then when you're done, you could just call on me and I'll come and excuse you if you're done. So create a Google Doc, title the file ClayBW, and then dash or hyphen your name, and then share with me. That way, again, I can look. I was able to add a couple of things to people's writing as I was helping them. That way they could visually see like what they needed to do. Anthony, were you not here yesterday for the podcast?
No.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me check. Anthony, since you weren't here yesterday, you didn't have a partner because I had to move people to for people who were actually here. But Ethan also didn't have a partner, so I'm gonna make you and Anthony, or Anthony, you and Ethan can work together. So if you want, you could send me, Ethan or Anthony, you could send me a link to your Google Doc and I will send it to the other person. And you guys can record that podcast tonight since you weren't here yesterday. Luis, hold on a second. Luis, your partner was Jaylene. She is not here today, but I can put you in the same group so you, Ethan, and Anthony could all work together. So that way you guys could just record and like knock it out together. So okay. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to stop recording on YouTube right now. So that way I'm going to start splitting everybody up into breakout rooms. And if you need help, ask for help and I'll come to your breakout room. If you need me to check to make sure that you're ready to go, also ask for help and I'll come to your room. Any questions before I split everyone up? All you are doing is working on your brief writes, and if you finish early, you guys can leave. If you guys need to work on your podcast after your brief writes, I can do that. Yeah, and yes, Nathaniel, you should always be using MLA formatting. I haven't really focused on that too much. When we write our first full-length essay, which will be probably in about 3 or 4 weeks, I'll go over MLA formatting. There's actually some awesome Google Doc templates that put everything in MLA formatting for you, and I'll share those with you so that way you guys can do that. No, Ronnie. So like I said, you need to ask for help. So you need me to come to your breakout room before you guys leave. If you just leave on your own, I'm going to mark you absent. So don't leave until I've checked your work. But thank you for asking. So that was good, just in case.